I started by priming the models with flat black from Army Painter. For these models, I'm using the bases from Sector Mechanicus. There's another video on the channel if you want to see how those were painted. Start with natural steel and paint the right shoulder and right arm of all the models. One of the Reivers have a combat knife, so I took care of that now. Also the domes on the jetpack and the exhaust vents. With that done, I'll grab some gunmetal gray and I will paint all the grenades on the models. Going to use German camo black brown for all the holsters and pouches around the belt. Use some Retributor armor to paint the skull and crossbones on the shoulder pads and on the chests. Multiple colors will be used for the shoulder pads. So I'm going to start with Vallejo red with a very thin coat and build it up to a nice even color of red, at the same time taking care of the guns. Then I'm going to take some black gray and paint the parts of the model that's in between the actual armor. Then I'm going to take some Agrax Earthshade and put a wash on the holster, pouches, and the brown parts of the belt. I'll use Nun oil to wash the natural steel parts of the model, as well as the grenades that were painted gunmetal gray. Next, I'm going to use some Vallejo white and paint the shoulders of these two guys with a handful of thin white coats. I'm also going to take care of the face masks on all the Reivers, making sure to include the eyes as well. That way when it comes time to paint them red, it won't take as many coats. I'm going to use Vallejo's dark blue on this Reaver's right shoulder pad. Next, I'm going to take some natural steel from Vallejo, and I'm going to paint the shoulder pad that was black, its skull natural steel, along with the trim. For the model whose shoulder was painted blue, I'm going to take some red to paint the emblem along with the trim. I'm going to use Army Painter's matte black to paint the emblems and the trim on the white and red shoulder pads. It's my first time using this matte black, and supposedly it's 100% matched to the primer, so I'll take the opportunity while it's on the palette to clean up any parts that I might have been a little sloppy on. I'm going to wash the blue shoulder pad with some Drakenhof Nightshade. I'll use a crimson wash on the red shoulder pad. The white shoulder pads are going to get a wash with some Seraphim Sepia from Citadel. I'm going to thin down some Vallejo red and take a thin brush and go ahead and paint the eyes. I'm going to use Nun Oil from Citadel to wash the face mask to bring out the skull features. I'll use Vallejo red to paint the emblem and the trim on the blue shoulder pad. I'm using Army Painter's matte black to paint the trim on the bottom and top of the gun. The red parts of the gun will get a wash in crimson from Citadel. I'm going to use beige brown to highlight the holster and pouches that are around the waist. One thing that I did that I somehow didn't manage to get on camera was all of the right knee pads were painted to match the base color of the right shoulder pad on all of the Reivers. Next, I'm going to take some natural steel and paint the magazine, barrel, and some of the little odds and ends of the gun. I also painted the buttons on the pouches and holster natural steel. I'm going to use Nun oil to wash the inside of the jetpacks, the vents, the magazine on the gun, the joints in between the armor, and any little odds and ends I might not have gotten to yet. I'm going to take some orange red and highlight the edges of the gun. Using that same orange red, I'm going to highlight the edges of the shoulder pad. I'm also going to use some thinned down orange red to add a little bit of highlighting to the red shoulder plate. I overdid it with the orange red, so I'm going to take some red and thin it down some and just paint over it to try and tone down that orange some. I thinned out some white paint and went back to the white shoulder pads and painted the part of the shoulder pad that I thought would be the brightest. From here, I'm going to take some dark gray and do some highlighting on all of the edges of the model on the parts that are painted black. Onto one of the final steps, I'm going to take some surface primer black from Vallejo and I'm going to paint the rims of the bases black or touch up the ones that have already been painted. After the models have had time to dry, the last step is to give them a coat of Model Master's Lustrous Flat. And there you have it, my Deathwatch Reivers ready to hit the table painted. Any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Other than that, thanks for watching.